Welcome.
You are watching Line Screw 1.
Well, hello tubers. Today we're going to talk about how to survive in your RV during a cold Canadian winter. Because we got a lot of those here in Canada. And I've done this for, I don't know, this is my 8th winter, I think, in the RV. I used to be a lot more nervous about this the first few winters, but I've got some tips and tricks and a few things to point you in the right direction, so it's not going to be an issue for you. First rule you got to remember is don't worry, but be prepared. So let's get on with it. First thing you're going to need, because everybody needs water to live, is you're going to need to heat tape and insulate where your water comes out of the ground, because if you don't do that, your exposed pipe above the ground will freeze, and without water you're done, bud. So that's step number one. Your next thing you're gonna have to do is gonna get a heated water line. You can make one. I've made them. The reason I've moved to this, what's it, Camco, or I don't know, forget the model, it really doesn't matter, I don't push products anyway. So I have made a heated water line. I triple insulated it and used heat tape, electrical heat tape, so you're gonna have to have power. So if you're boondocking, you're gonna have to have a source of power. There's no way around it. You might have to run a generator, but it's the idea of having a home base during the winter, or else you're gonna run into troubles, because electricity is your friend. So like I said, I have made these in the past, and the problem with them was they were too warm. I actually over-engineered one that was triple insulated, so that when I turned my cold water tap on, I could actually shower under it for a couple minutes. It was that good. So good, in fact, that I hated it. So I find these are pretty good, and I think they're rated down to about -20 or something like that. So buy one or make one. You're gonna need it. But there is an option if you cannot afford one or cannot get one. What you can do is you go over here and just your water intake, your tanks are inside. As long as you got heat running inside, you can just fill up your tanks and just run the onboard water. That's a no-brainer way of doing it. Of course, you're limited to how much water you can carry, but you just have to fill it up every 2-3 days, depending on how much water you use. That's another strategy that I've used from time to time. But I like having water on demand, so I like to go with the heated water line. Now, once you got your heated water line installed, make sure the actual intake is insulated with something. But also make sure that your thermostat, which is this, is exposed to the outdoor elements so that it works properly. If it's tucked away somewhere inside, like if you have a heated intake bay, that's not going to work very well for you, because it's going to think it's not as cold as it really is. So make sure this is exposed to the outdoor elements, which my outside area is. So let's get down to the sewerage end of things. Now, this is always a big hassle, and I've had problems over the years, and I expect to have problems because the following weekend around Christmas and Boxing Day is the day after Christmas, for those of you in the United States, it's going to get down to about -11 Celsius. So I do not have a heated tank. I do not have a heated gray tank, nor do I have a heated black tank. So what I do is I make sure that the run coming out of the sewer is nice and steep, so that it drains steep and short, so that water all leaves the gray tank. And of course I leave that gray tank valve open, and there's a reason for that, so that it just drips down. Now you're gonna say to me, Andrew, but what happens when your gray valve freezes open? What do you do then? Well, I'll tell you what you do. You take this off and you just get your cap and you put your cap on. See, it's already got an icicle on there. That's how cold it is. You put the cap on there, run a whole bunch of hot water inside, and it will start unthawing your actual valves. That's what you got to do. And once that sits for a little while, your valves should be able to move. Now, of course, I've got 2 valves, one on each side, so a little bit of hot water inside there for, I don't know, an hour or 2 should free them up. If that doesn't work, you're gonna have to take this off, and you're gonna have to stick a hose down there and blast it with warm water to free it up. There's just no way around it, because it's gonna happen. Even on the back side of this, it's exposed. So a lot of RVs, even with heated tanks, have exposed valves, and they will freeze. Let's talk about the black tank a little bit more, and I'll give you another strategy on how I deal with that. Now, when the temperatures are of sustained freezing level, meaning that it never gets above freezing, I flush exclusively with windshield washer fluid in the toilet. I literally buy this stuff by the case and use it to flush the toilet, and it's good down to minus 35. Of course, it's going to have a bit of fluids from your body and water mixed in, so it should still protect you down to about minus 20, I'm thinking. This is probably the cheapest product I can recommend. You could use plumbing antifreeze, but that stuff's a lot more expensive. And this is designed just to, use as windshield fluid, so it can, escape into the environment and just evaporate anyway. It's just ethyl alcohol anyways. And if you're worried about any of your water lines freezing, just crack the cupboards a bit. That way some of the heat from inside your cab and living area gets to where the actual water lines are. Keeps them a little warmer so they don't freeze. I just think it's a good idea. Now keep in mind, if you're flushing your toilet with this stuff, it's actually flammable and it's poisonous. So keep it away from your children and your pets, and a source of ignition. Because the last thing you want to be doing is causing a fire. And for the love of God, don't throw your cigarette butts down the toilet, especially when your tank is filled with gallons of this flammable material. So don't do it. Another tip I have for you is to always keep an eye on the temperature. Find a window where your actual temperature during the day and night will be above zero, because many places the temperature is always fluctuating between freezing and not freezing, or just hovering above freezing. So that way you can decide when is the best time to dump your tanks where the valves might not even be frozen. So I recommend doing it on the warmest day of the week, later in the day, just before the sun goes down, where the tanks have warmed up sufficiently that the valves themselves may not even be frozen. And keep an eye on the temperature. Don't be caught in a situation where it got so cold and you didn't really realize it was going to happen, because there's no excuse. We all got smartphones. You can look at the temperature forecast where you're going to be and plan ahead. And I know I can go about 9 days without dumping the black tank, but if I go beyond that and the actual thing's frozen up solid, yeah, that's an inconvenience, and I'm gonna have to, get something done about it pretty quick. So I don't like to leave things to the last minute if I have to fight with them. I time when I'm gonna dump, I look at the forecast, and I remain prepared. And if you're prepared, I don't think you should have too much of an issue with RVing in a cold Canadian environment. I also keep some extra heat tape around, and it can be a good idea to wrap your sewer line, or even crawl underneath, which is what I'm going to do in a couple days, and insulate closer to the valves with some heat tape. Of course, you're going to have to plug it in. You're going to need a source of power, but that's why I recommend having a place that is a home base with 30 amps of connection, because otherwise, how are you going to run all this stuff 24/7? And speaking of heating, you can actually heat everything with 30 amps. You just have to remember to not run your microwave while you're running all your other heating appliances. Same with, don't forget about your electric water heater. If that's cycling on and you're trying to run a couple thousand watts of heat, it's not going to happen. You can always flick that onto propane in the short term. But whatever you do, don't turn off your water heater. It will freeze, it will burst. Keep it on 24/7. Don't try to save a few bucks by not running it to save some propane or electricity. Keep it on and do not turn it off unless you're going to properly store your RV and not use your RV. And that's a different story about winterizing. I'm not even talking about winterizing. I'm talking about using your RV in the winter, which there's absolutely no reason in a world that you can't use your RV in the winter, every winter. So if you have any comments, concerns, questions, put them in the comment section below. And in the meantime, folks, keep your wheels in the ground. I'll talk to you soon. Over and out.
Can go to figure out what we've done, what we need to do. Yeah, I got you, I got you, I got you.